Oh, haven't used this thing in a while. So it's almost the end of 2025 and I'm about a year out from quitting my super comfy $250,000 a year corporate sales job. And it's been one of the most exciting and rewarding years of my life, but it took a ton of effort and failures to get here. So let's talk about how it all happened. So the first time I realized that I did not want to have a normal job or really a normal life was 2018, 1 year after I graduated college. So I graduated in 2017 and I went into tech sales because I felt it was going to be the best way to maximize both my income, my time, and my freedom, which was true. Tech sales is an amazing career for that, and I achieved everything that I wanted to, in that realm later in my life. So back in 2017, I had started working for a small startup company, which is a theme. I always wanted to work for a small company and help grow it to be really big. And I absolutely hated it. The company just sucked. So I quit after 5 months and I started looking for new tech sales jobs. And I remembered looking through the companies that were available and I was like, dang, none of these companies do anything cool. Like, I'm just not interested in tech like that. So even though the idea of tech sales was attractive, like none of the companies actually did anything cool, right? But anyways, I found a company that I thought was relatively cool compared to the rest. It was a tool that was sold to salespeople. This was a really small company. And that company had actually contracted out another company that was like a sales consulting company. So I ended up working for the sales consulting company, learning how to cold call. And that company was amazing. The CEO was awesome. The managers are awesome. And that's really where I cut my teeth in sales. Naturally, I'm a little bit of an introvert. And in this job, I was making hundreds of cold calls a day, really improving my speaking, my salesmanship, improving my courage. And I met really great mentors along the way. That company was amazing. But what ended up happening, the company's product that I was selling for, they ended up moving to New York, and I didn't want to move to New York. I wanted to stay in Raleigh, where I was from. So ultimately, I had to make the tough choice to quit. It was around that time when I found my next venture, Cisco, massive tech company, and I wanted to apply for this early in career program that they had. Now, I applied for this role, and then all of a sudden I started hearing these things like, oh, it's impossible to get in here. Only executives' kids can get this job. I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. I'm still going to try my best. Long story short, I put so much effort and time into getting the role at Cisco, and I did end up getting the job and joined a cohort of 16 people in their sales program. And that was early 2019, which was about a year and a half into my career. Now, when I was making the decision to quit the second job, I remember just sitting on my bed in my boxers, so distraught because I'd been relatively successful in my life. And here I was quitting 2 jobs within a year out of college. And, back then people always say, oh, you shouldn't job hop, blah, blah, blah. Not true. But I ultimately just felt like a failure and I was like, my life's over, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have one more chance at life if I get this job at Cisco. So ultimately I did get the job at Cisco. And before I started, I decided to take about a month off just to relax. And I wanted to go on a big trip. So this is where I took my first big international trip to Thailand. This was really a turning point for my life because it helped me discover a new passion for international travel and exploring. So I had never left the country, packed up one backpack full of clothes, and flew all the way across the world to Thailand. And I distinctly remembered landing there, going to my very first hostel, Mad Monkey in Bangkok. I just had this feeling when I got in there, I was like, oh my God, I'm completely alone. I literally don't know anybody here. So I went to the bar, sat down, and ordered a drink. Some English dude pulls up next to me. What's up, mate? And he invited me to the back where there was a pool, and he was hanging out with like a group of 10 people. And this was the first time I experienced this, like the hostel life, how you just pull up into a place and you start hanging out with all these strangers. And then literally for the next 3 weeks, I hopped all the way across Thailand from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, down to Koh Phangan, down to Koh Tao, hanging with that crew. And some people would break off, you'd meet new people and you'd travel with them, kind of like the whole hostel travel circuit thing, and just had the absolute best and craziest time in Thailand for 3 weeks. And I remember thinking, man, this was fun, but I know I'm not going to get to do this again for a long time because I'm about to go back to my job. The thought that I would be able to do that forever really hadn't come into my mind yet. I was honestly excited to go into a job and start making money because at this time, my net worth was negative. When I was working for the startups, I was barely making enough to cover my bills. I had student loans. I was living pretty good, like I was fine, but I definitely hadn't made it, had barely any money. So then I started at Cisco, and frankly, the whole experience was overall amazing. I worked there for the next 6 years. They're such a great company. I met some of my best friends because I started in a cohort of 16, and a handful of those guys were still good friends today. And all of a sudden, I had a new network of people to hang out with. We were going out to the bars together. We were hanging out all day. And Cisco is a really big company, so like, we weren't really doing that much. When you work at a big company like that, you are a cog in the machine, which does suck. But the good thing is there's very little accountability or like personal accountability because the company runs without us, right? Like whether we did good or bad or what we were doing didn't really affect the company too much. So I was having a blast at Cisco. And so that first year I made $75K, which to me was like, oh my God. Like I was making almost double what I used to make in 1 year. I had so many friends, it was super chill. Then around a year and a half in, I applied to a new job, which would have been like a double jump. So it was a field sales role, skipping the role above me, and it would have been, a huge promotion. There were a bunch of candidates for the role and a little bit of drama with the hiring process. But ultimately, I was able to land the job, and that really set me on a new trajectory. In this role, I was responsible for a territory of my own of some of Cisco's bigger customers, selling technology that I frankly knew nothing about. Thankfully, I had an absolutely amazing manager who literally changed my life. She was my boss for 4 years. I could not be more grateful for her, one, giving me the chance in that opportunity, and just for the journey we went on over that 4 years. She was always so supportive, helped me so much, absolutely changed my life, which brought about another theme in my life, which was wanting to work for good leaders. Because up to that point, I'd had a lot of bosses from the startup companies, changing bosses all the time. At this point, I think I'd had like 8 to 9 bosses. I had some amazing ones, I had some good ones, I had some bad ones, and I had a terrible one. And this really taught me how important it is to work for good leaders who want to invest in your success, and how finding amazing people to work for is really a cheat code to like leveling up so far in life. So I'd gone from 42 to 75 to 116 in my second year at Cisco, and then all the way up to $235,000 in 1 year, and I was 25 years old. That was an exhilarating time. All of a sudden, I was getting paychecks more than I could spend. 15K, 20K, 10K. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm on top of the world. And so this is when I decided to make another big life change and move to Chicago. I would end up living there for 3 years. I moved there from North Carolina. And then in my second year, did well again, made $232,000. I was in this super sick apartment in Chicago, all glass, overlooking the water. It was amazing. But I remember in my second year, I started to get this feeling where I just really didn't want to get out of bed too much in the morning, because I was like, what's the point? Like, I'm just in this job, talking to IT directors, selling stuff that I really don't care about. I knew I was a cog in the machine, so everything was running around me. I also knew that I was reaping the rewards of working for a company like Cisco, so it was great. I was making a lot of money. After the first year, I didn't have to work that much. It got to the point where I was working less than 20 hours a week. Like, it was super chill. But I just felt like, okay, this is it. Like, where do I go from here? I was looking at, how you can advance through the company. Managers make roughly the same or a little more or even a little less than sales reps. So did I want to work 10 years to be a director just to maybe double my income and also still be selling stuff that I didn't care about? No. I started to just be like, man, what else is out there? Now, let's rewind a little bit to when I started getting into side hustles. It was really around 2019, 2020 that I started being interested in learning how to make money online. It had always been my dream to be able to just work from my laptop wherever I wanted in the world. But things were going well at Cisco, and I just didn't really know how to break into that world. Eventually, I started to get more serious about it. And at the time, the things that were like really hot in the make money online space were like copywriting, e-commerce, drop shipping. So copywriting was really attractive to me. It's basically like writing ads or email campaigns or sales pages for online coaches. Since it was around 2020, this was the start of the online coach era. So I tried on and off for a year or two to find some gigs. I did some random things on Upwork, like writing job descriptions, made like 20 bucks. But the first real gig I got, I remember I was watching a YouTube video and this ad popped up and it said, learn how to make 100K online being a copywriter. And I was like, well, 100K a year isn't that attractive to me, but I do want to learn how to be a copywriter. So, and it was $5,000 to join this mastermind. This was also the start of me joining these mastermind networking groups, which have also played a pivotal role in my life. I had never spent $5,000 on anything in my life up to this point, but frankly, I was getting massive checks from Cisco and I was like, oh, whatever, why not? So I joined that mastermind, and then a few months into it, there was the opportunity to fly out to Arizona to go meet people in person. So I felt like I knew I had to do that, because just trying to do things by yourself, like I wasn't really just having much success. So I flew out to Arizona, there was a little seminar, but then there was a poker game afterwards. And I was like, God, I suck at poker. I don't even know how to play. I'm gonna lose all my money. I've already spent so much money to come here. But I knew the networking would be worth it. So I went to go play poker. This one guy found out that I was in sales and he was like, oh, you should talk to my buddy. He needs a sales rep. And I was thinking, well, I don't really want to get another sales job, but I figured I'd talk to him anyways. So I talked to that guy and he was like, well, I'm hiring for sales guys, but my other friend is hiring for copywriters. So then I talked to that guy. Interview went well, but they ended up putting hiring on pause. So I was like, oh, whatever. A couple more months went by. He hits me back up. Hey, do you still want the gig? Yes. So I accepted the job, and that was my first big gig into the make money online space. So I was a copywriter for this marketing agency, and their main client was the online sales coach Jeremy Miner, who is very famous now. But back in 2022, I didn't really know who he was, but he still had a good thing going on. So I was making $3,500 a month, and I was writing tons of ads, email campaigns, video sales letters for these online coaches. Then things were starting to open back up from COVID, and we could travel again. I hadn't been on a big trip since right before COVID in 2019. Also, I forgot to mention that after Thailand, later that year, I just had the urge to go travel again, and I did a 3-week backpacking trip in Europe. So that was at the end of 2019, right before COVID happened, but that was just another experience that shaped my love for international travel, hostel hopping, all that. So that year, I hit up my buddy Alex. I was like, yo, we should go to South America for a month. And he was like, I'm down. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So in October 2022, we went to South America. We traveled from Peru to Ecuador to Colombia for a month. Different cities, hostel hopping. It was so fun. And that's where I filmed my first YouTube video. I thought I wanted to be a YouTuber. So during this trip through South America, I was filming a ton of content. I had bought a camera, and then I came back home and I started editing all these videos. I joined this YouTube mastermind. So that was my next hustle to get out of my job. So then we get into the next year, and it's 2023. This was the year of me creating YouTube videos. So long story short, I went to my friend's wedding in Puerto Rico, ended up meeting a girl there who was also doing online marketing and wanted to travel. And we ended up traveling together for like 6 months maybe. I went to Central America, we went to Europe, and I was just living I was living the life basically, filming YouTube videos. And at the beginning of that year, I was like, I'm gonna quit my job by the end of this year and go be a YouTuber and go live in Southeast Asia. Well, about halfway through the year, I realized that YouTubers don't make hardly any money. They're pretty much all broke, except for the very famous ones. Then I had another crisis, and I was like, oh my God. I just can't make any real money with this online marketing stuff. I ended up stopping doing the copywriting thing around that same time too. Actually, ChatGPT had just come out. They were moving their team to Arizona, and I wasn't that into it either, so it was just like a mutual of parting ways because I didn't want to move to Arizona. And I just didn't see the upward potential of making more than, $3,500, $5,000 a month. And when I was comparing that to what I was making at Cisco, it just didn't make any sense. I was having a crisis. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna be stuck working a boring job forever. I was looking up AI companies to work for because that was the hot thing at the time. But it really just wasn't that exciting to me. Then this random idea popped in my head. I'll start doing real estate. Rich people buy real estate. They have good lives, right? Real estate investors have good lives. Started studying real estate that summer in August 2023. Basically studied it for 2 months, bought my first rental property. I don't really know what I was expecting. I was like, okay, maybe you do a down payment of $50K for a house that cash flows $1,000. You buy like 5 houses, but it obviously doesn't work like that. So by the time all was said and done, I ended up paying $80,000 down, which was a 25% down payment on this house that cash flowed $300 a month. So I quickly realized that, okay, well, this isn't going to get me out of my job. I don't regret doing that. It got me into the game of real estate. It was a new house, so it's going to be a great asset down the road, but I realized that was not going to work. So, time to join another mastermind. So then I joined this mastermind that I found through Instagram called Action Academy, which takes high-earning corporate people and helps them get out of their job through real estate and small business acquisitions. So I joined this group. There was about 200 people in it at the time. And I just learned a flood of new information. I learned about wholesaling, land flipping, small business acquisition, commercial real estate. Like, I realized that normal people can just buy apartments and stuff. I wanted to at least make enough so that I can quit my job as quick as I could within a year. I was super bummed about stopping YouTube because I know how long it takes to do something else and get it to the point where it can actually pay you a decent amount of money and you can be good at it. But I had no choice and I had to start over. So I decided to start wholesaling. Wholesaling is essentially where you do marketing to people who have distressed properties. You'll get them under contract, say for $100,000, closing in 30 days, and then you'll find a fix and flipper who will agree to buy the house for $110,000, and then you keep the $10K in between. And honestly, it's a pretty crazy concept. The fact that I was calling people on the phone and convincing them to sell me their house, and then finding another person to go buy it. Wholesaling was quite a journey. I started at the very beginning of 2024, and this is an expensive business to get started in. I joined another wholesaling mastermind that was $10,000, and basically started doing marketing, sending mail, having cold callers call for me, having people text for me. I was spending about $5 to $6K a month, and 4 months in, I had not even got close to closing a deal. I was like, oh my God, dude, this is never gonna work. I'm gonna be stuck in my job forever. So I was committed to not quitting. I had no plan B. I was like, there is no option for me to not get out of my job this year. I have to. So I did not give up. And eventually 5 months in, I closed my first deal and made $10,000. And then all of a sudden it just started popping for me. I was getting contract after contract after contract. And I was like, this is it. This is working. This works. I'm gonna be able to quit my job. So that was August, and I had to decide not to sign my lease in October from Chicago, and I was gonna move back to North Carolina. And then I closed a couple more deals, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. I made it, I'm quitting. So I decided that I was gonna quit my job come October. Around the same time, in that mastermind group, the owner of an award-winning hostel chain in Hawaii, Nate, joined the group. And he joined and said, hey, I have these hostels in Hawaii. Like, it's our business. We're the #1 hostel in North America. I was like, oh, that's sweet. I was like super focused on wholesaling, but I hit him up because I was like, oh, I love hostels. Tell me about your business. No real intention to work for him. I didn't even know how I would make money with that because, with commercial real estate, you don't really make much money until down the line. So we chatted for a few months. We met up at one of the networking events for the group. And we just vibed really well, bonded. We're, really similar, have same goals and dreams. So he was like, hey, come work for me. You've done marketing before, hostels. Let's do this thing. We need a head of marketing. So I was like, all right, I'm in. We leave the event in September. And so we hadn't really finalized it yet at this point, but I was like, all right, I'm coming to Hawaii. I'm going to book a flight for a few weeks from now. And he was like, okay. And then in the course of those 3 weeks, that's when we more so finalized it. So that's another lesson. you got to take massive action if you want to get opportunities like this. Like, just go for it, book the flight, go meet the person, do the thing. So we're getting to the point where it's almost time to quit my job. By this point, I'd been making on average $270,000 a year for 4 years in a row from Cisco. It was super chill. I had so many friends there, but I knew it was time to go. When it was time to actually quit, honestly, I wasn't that nervous. I had been wanting this moment for so long, preparing for it. I had a bunch of money saved up, and I just knew this was the time to go and take the leap. So that's when I did it. So I called my boss one day and said, hey, thank you so much for everything you've done for me. You're amazing. Time to go chase my dreams now. And then I remember sitting there and I was like, wow, I finally did it. Such a proud moment to have finally accomplished something that I wanted to accomplish for so long. So that was at the end of 2024. We're in September of 2025 now. It's been a crazy first year. Frankly, there's been a lot of challenges. I'm going to go into that more in a new video. But overall, it's pretty crazy because I always imagine myself as just being able to work from anywhere, work from my computer, do something that I actually care about and have fun with, and also have the potential to build massive wealth. I never thought that I would actually be able to work for like a hostel company or like buy hotels. It's like that was not even in my frame of reality of anything that I thought was possible. So it's just pretty crazy how after all those years of wanting it, I finally made it. And now the new chapter has been great, and there's been a lot of challenges. You know, this year has not gone exactly how we expected, but everything happens for a reason, and I think we're on an amazing path to grow our company and do awesome things. So I'm going to talk about this past year of being with the company in another video, but for now, I would just like to tell my past self, you did it. You freaking made it. You didn't know if you were going to, but you did. And I'll tell my future self, you're going to do it again. Whatever it is, anything you want to do, you always achieve. And what I would tell you if you're watching this is that, oh man, this is so cliche, but like literally anything is possible. You don't have to have this boring job, whatever it is, like whatever life you want to create, there is people out there doing it. One of the most amazing things about being in all these networking groups is seeing all the people out there who are doing super cool things that like you wouldn't even believe that regular people can do. And it's all because they tried, they met the people who showed them how, and they didn't quit. So if I were to give final advice for you and myself, it would be go after the things you want relentlessly, no matter what, because it will happen if you try hard enough for long enough, and buckle up and enjoy the ride because it is going to be crazy.